to increase their revenues. Once this phase was complete, the drilling companies moved into our neighborhoods. They promised homeowners big royalty checks and free gas. When residents would ask about the safety, they simply stated that the state closely regulates this and monitors all the drilling. And besides, the church, school, and the city hall all have wells next to them, and they wouldn't let that happen if it wasn't safe. And if a homeowner balked at the idea of a well, the landman would simply tell them that it didn't matter if they didn't want the well. The state would force them to allow it under mandatory pooling, and then they threatened to take the resource anyway and give the owner nothing. This actually happened to my parents, and they felt pressure into signing a lease and brought all their neighbors to the door with them and said, "You're the only one who didn't sign, and if you don't, we're going to take it anyway." And I found out later this isn't true, that even if you are mandatorily pooled, you still get royalties. In 2012, just 6 years later, Broadview Heights has over 90 wells in our 13-square-mile bedroom community. Some of the residents signed, and some turned to City Hall for answers. When they called the city, though, they were told that the city had no control when it came to drilling. The state in 2004 had taken all control away from our local elected officials by passing House Bill 278. And I realize this puts all of you in an awkward position. You're elected by your residents, and you take an oath to protect their health, safety, and welfare. And yet the state is going to prohibit you from doing this. The state has given all the authority to a state agency, the ODNR, to overrule your local ordinances and monitor all drilling activities within Medina. Remember, though, that no one in this agency has been elected by the people. Many, though, have come straight from the industry, though, that they're supposed to regulate. They then draft regulations to make the public think that we are being protected, when in reality, they are really just regulating the rate of destruction of your community. No one is monitoring our air quality, no one is monitoring our groundwater, and no one is monitoring the effects on our health in the short term or the long term for that matter. This one particular industry has been given exemptions from the Clean Water Act, the Clean Air Act, and the Safe Water Drinking Act. The toxic waste produced from the process is not considered hazardous, and thus doesn't have to be treated as other hazardous wastes do. This industry has pretty much been given carte blanche to rape and pillage our communities and then leave all of us with the fallout, including lower property values. In Broadview Heights, we have had residents get their property values reduced from the county because of wells near their homes. Several mortgage lenders, including KeyBank, Wells Fargo, and Quicken Loans, have policies in place that mortgages will not be written on properties that have a well on them, or if the property is within 600 feet of a well. Also, if a well is placed on the property, the owner will be liable for the damages. It's no secret to any of us that banks and insurance companies don't like risk. Drilling for oil and gas, though, is a risk. I have a whole scrapbook of articles, and I also have a lot more in my flash drive that show what a real risk it is. In Broadview Heights alone, we have had 200 gallons of oil leak from a well into the Chippewa Creek due to the negligence of a drilling company. We have had homes with families evacuated in the middle of the night because of odor seeping from a well and causing burning eyes and throats. This too was caused by a drilling company error. We have had oil appear in a resident's yard, seeping up through the ground, and I have photos of all this, to discover only later that it was motor oil from a faulty compressor that the drilling company was using to drill. We have had a part break on a producing well next to a playground when children were out at recess and began spraying an oil water substance onto the playground. No matter how safe they lead you to believe this is, make no mistake, drilling is an industrial process being brought into your community and into your neighborhoods. Along with the drilling comes lots of truck traffic, waste pits filled with who knows what, air pollution, containers with big poison signs written on them, and transient workers from who knows where, all in your backyards. I brought up this photo album, like I said, so it's filled with photos that you can feel free to look at. And I'm sure they're not photos you've seen before in any brochures. Trees get bulldozed, and in comes big industrial equipment that you never thought you'd see in a residential neighborhood. But the other argument I know you're all hearing about is probably the economic benefits that drilling will bring to Medina. With 90 wells in Broadview Heights, I have not seen an economic boom. Instead, we have residents wanting to move out of the city and others getting property value reductions. We still have empty storefronts, and we still pay the same for heating our homes as communities with no drilling. The industry likes to talk about all the jobs this will create, but they never mention what the impact might be on the ones we already have. Ohio has two very profitable industries in agriculture and tourism. Organic and locally grown food as an industry is on the rise. We're lucky in the Cleveland area. We have a lot of, we're on the national food scene there with our restaurants. What we do in Ohio, though, can affect all that. Ask yourself if you would rather eat food grown in Los Angeles or in Vermont, China or Oregon. If we are reckless today to make a quick dollar, what impact will this have on our financial futures? I a lot of times would ask myself, if there's only one accident in Broadview Heights that destroys the environment like a Love Canal, or causes deaths with an explosion, and there was one just this summer in Bolivar, Ohio, where a storage tank exploded and killed a person. An illness in the form of a cancer cluster, and recently Clyde, Ohio has been in the news because of that going on, and toxic sludge that a playground was built on. What would this do to the economic sustainability of Broadview Heights? Look how long it has taken Cleveland just to shake the whole river catching on fire incident. Will young people want to move and raise families in a polluted area? How do you as city officials plan for the future of your community and how it will look in the future when you can't even control what industrial process occurs in your city and where? Does Medina want to be a resource colony for corporate profit? If natural resources and extracting them were so great for a community, then why is West Virginia so poor? West Virginia has always been one of this country's most resource-rich states, and yet it has always remained one of the poorest states. The residents of Broadview Heights this past summer decided that they did not want to be a resource colony for any more corporate profits and greed. We decided to take a different approach and ask the residents what they wanted in their community. I am proud and happy to say that we placed a Community Bill of Rights on the November ballot, stating that we have the right to clean air, clean water, and a sustainable future. We also included the right to self-governance, which we already have under the Constitution. And we put a ban on any future drilling in the city, a ban on storage of toxic waste in the form of injection wells, and a ban on spreading the brine on our roads. The Broadview Heights Bill of Rights passed by a 3-to-1 margin. The people spoke loud and clear, and to me, this is what democracy is all about. I urge you to listen to your residents. They are expecting you to represent them. That's what they elected you to do. Unfortunately, right now, the Ohio legislature is more interested in representing the interests of the gas and oil industry. The state has put you in a position of having to choose between representing an industry and companies who most likely don't reside here, or representing your residents. The people in the community of Medina need you all to stand up and defend their interests because no one else really is. Your decisions can shape what Medina looks like in 10 years, 20 years, and possibly even 100 years from now. I know some people say that you can't go against state law, but if people in the past had not had the courage to stand up to bad laws, then as women we still wouldn't have the right to vote, we would be separated by race, and we probably wouldn't even have weekends off. Ask yourself what the big rush is. The oil and gas isn't going anywhere. Why have Vermont, New Jersey, the city of Pittsburgh, and the countries of France, Quebec, and the European Union put bans on fracking? Why is the industry in such a hurry to suck out what's beneath us and get it into pipelines as fast as they can? They claim this is to get us off foreign dependencies for energy, yet they are anxious to ship it to whoever will pay the most for it. Building on a boom and bust economy is not building a sustainable future for our children and grandchildren. You have 3 choices. You can do nothing and you'll get fracked. You could try to pass regulations and ordinances limiting where the drilling is going and happening, but you'll still get fracked. Or you can try to stand up for your right to self-governance and make the best decisions for the community you live in and possibly not get fracked. I urge you to continue to educate yourselves, and like I said, I know it's a long, hard process. I've been doing it for probably almost 2 years now. Broadview Heights, along with Mansfield, Yellow Springs, Monroe Falls, and Cincinnati, would love to have Medina as another Ohio community taking back their constitutional right to self-governance. Thank you for allowing me this time, and I've also brought you some handouts as well as the photo album and scrapbook for you to look over. I brought one of these packets, and what I did is I put websites on here, just ones of articles. I can't email them to one of you or whatever, and then you can forward it, and then you can click on the links instead of having to type them in if you wanted to go. So that's what I put on here. I also put a chart on where the jobs are, and then the article is linked on the front, the full article. So I have one of these for each of you.
Great, thanks. Thanks, Tish, I appreciate that. Could you stay up there just for a few minutes?
Sure.